Your college football game day has come early.
Goes down the field for Sicky, goes up high. He's got get away from the cock speed, and the ball is free. Woo! What a hit! You got barbecue back there.
From underdog triumphs to powerhouse showdowns, we've got your winning playbook covered. It's BetQLU with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin. Presented by BetMGM. The sports book born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
And welcome in. We're back. Back again. Guess who's back? Back again. Chris Mack alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy for the latest episode of BetQLU, which you can watch on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel, and of course, download in podcast form as soon as it's available every single week, wherever you get your podcasts, including right there inside your free Odyssey app, AUDACY. Download it today if you haven't done yourself the favor yet. And of course, every Friday night and Saturday morning, we are live coast to coast on the BetQL network, which we will just be upfront with you, makes this week's episode just a little bit more difficult. Why? Because you may be listening to this while the semifinals of the college football playoff are being played. And I'll be quite honest, in our world, in our DeLorean, our 1983 DeLorean that we took back into the past, it is Wednesday night. And so we don't even know what's happened in these games yet. So we're just going to be straight up and honest about that. That's the world we're living in. We are in a time warp, but if nothing else, it will give us an opportunity to talk about the perspective on these four teams going into the semifinals. And if you're listening to this after the games have been played, after Penn State, Notre Dame, after Ohio State, Texas, and you can look back and say, oh, yeah, okay, that adds a little context to where I am on the national championship matchup, perhaps. And it's going to be one of those teams, or two of those teams, I should say, in the national championship matchup. One of those four is going to win it. And there are odds right now as we speak, gentlemen, on the exact outcome of the national championship. Again, for those of you listening to this pre-semifinal games, the best odds, the favored option, Ohio State over Notre Dame, plus 220. Ohio State over Penn State, 240. Notre Dame over Ohio State is 850. You can go all the way down the board to find Penn State beating Texas in the national championship game at 12-1. Again, understanding that we are in our time machine right now, John, for some of those that are listening on Friday night or Saturday morning, let's talk about it as we're sitting here recording this show right now. Which of these outcomes makes the most sense to you, given the values that are on the board right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I hope this doesn't age like crap. but I would definitely say Ohio State. I mean, as crazy as, that might have felt 2 weeks ago, maybe it should have never felt crazy, I think is maybe the point here. Because if you just take it, throughout the majority of the season, lost by 1 in Eugene. Yeah, got your doors blown off by Michigan. But, we just saw this Michigan team beat Alabama with their backup secondary. So maybe we, panicked and put a little too much weight on that. Again, should have won the game, but maybe Michigan was playing possum a little bit all year long. So, yeah, I think Ohio State, given the fact that, They seem to be able to protect Will Howard. Offensively, they just are a juggernaut right now. And I don't know if it's totally, unlike an NCAA tournament team, where, you get hot and you go on a 6-game streak, maybe Ohio State win that this year, except instead of 6, it's, 4.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, again, this could age really poorly, but if I'm looking at this, if you're just looking at the matchups in terms of where the value is, it's Texas. You would just run Texas against Penn State, Notre Dame. That's the value. Because I think everybody would, whoever wins the Ohio State-Texas game is going to be heavily favored. You would just pick Texas to beat Notre Dame and Texas to beat Penn State because you're going to get 9 and 10-1 on those, and you could deal with a loss. I mean, look, if you think Ohio State, I mean, you could really run Ohio State against both, and you're still going to come out on top. It's just going to be a very small margin. There really is no value on the Ohio State side. The value lies with Texas, because I do think it's really, really likely that the winner comes from that game, from that Cotton Bowl game. So I think that's the route I would probably take.
Again, as of Wednesday night, Ohio State minus 130 to win the national championship at BetMGM, heavily favored over all of the other three teams. The other thing that's interesting about these semifinal matchups, and then we'll move on to some stuff that'll make more sense for those of you listening Friday night and Saturday morning. Plenty of college hoops to talk about, best bets before we wrap up as well. Hell, maybe we'll even talk NFL. The other thing that jumps out to me is the line movement that we've seen on both of these games. When these matchups were first released, I remember, and I've been hammered about it on social media by all of the Ohio State fans. I remember saying if it gets to 7, I'm going to be real tempted to dive in on Texas. Instead, it's come back the other way from 6.5 to 5.5, which tells me other people were being similarly attracted to Texas. On the other hand, Penn State, Notre Dame, really not as much movement, a little bit closer, a little bit tighter. Notre Dame by a point now in most places. So, John, both of these are tightening up since the lines came out.
Yeah, and I think on the first of all, with Penn State and Notre Dame, I mean those two teams are pretty identical. And then you get the good news today or yesterday that Abdul Carter is going to play. There was definitely some doubt about that. And obviously we know kind of how much his presence can change a game as the best, highest rated pass rusher in the NFL draft. So I think that kind of explains the movement in the Notre Dame game, that Abdul Carter is going to be there and just the havoc that he can wreak. And then I think with Texas, listen, it's a key number at 6. This is one of the best defenses in all of football. Maybe the thinking is, that this defense can contain Ohio State in a way that we have not seen. I'm not really moved by that because I just think Quinn Ewers has just played so poorly, against Arizona State, just kind of lobbing these balls up there. It's just not, again, I've felt for, 3 weeks that the wrong quarterback is playing in this game. But I can see where, again, you're talking about numbers here and diminishing edges. I can see where, okay, a 6, let's just pick that off if we can and hope that it lands within that.
Look, I mean, the line movement, there's no difference. And it's a really strange line, when it comes to Notre Dame, Penn State. I mean, you can get just the juice you got to lay. If you wanted to take Notre Dame -1, you're paying -115, or you just take a money line -120. It's like you're paying a little bit extra. Just take the money line. Like that's basically what it is. Just get yourself the win, and you avoid the push. I mean, if you're really in on Notre Dame, the Texas Ohio State, Quinn Ewers is, and I'm with you, John. I think the wrong quarterback is probably playing, but you couldn't possibly start anybody else in this game.
That's
like
right.
You can't get away with it. You really can't.
Yeah.
If Sark were to start Arch Manning and they get blown out and he looks, he gets rattled and they're 3-and-out in the first 4, I mean, he would never hear the end of it. He would be sprinting to the NFL immediately after that game. There's no way he would be allowed back in Austin again.
Do the Nick Saban, Jalen Hurts Tua thing.
Yeah.
You can do that. Give Quinn a half, see how it goes, and then break glass.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, and that. Listen, if it gets out of hand, that's what they're going to probably do.
What's out of hand though? Like, because they could be
Oregon?
down 10. They could be down 10, and again, we're talking about the semifinal matchup against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. They could be down 10 at half, and I'd be like, okay, this could go. It's kind of like when we were talking during halftime of the Notre Dame Georgia game, and it was like, what are we going to see right after halftime? And we thought, well, this could tighten up. It's Georgia. They can make a game of it. Instead, Notre Dame returns the kick, and the game's basically over at that point. Similarly, you could be looking at it and saying, okay, Texas is only down 10 to the Buckeyes. They could come back in this thing, and they think, okay, that's it. We're going to Arch. Yeah. I don't know if 10, I think it's got to be tighter than that. My own opinion, I think you got to be a touchdown or inside of that. In order to break glass in case of Arch emergency. But what's your number?
I mean, look, I said the same thing when Tennessee was only down 11 at half to Ohio State. It didn't work out well. Ohio State has started these two games on a 55-zip run. They were up 34-zip and then 21-0. It's going to have to be something like that. If it's 21-zip for one, like it was in the previous two games they've played, at that point, what do you have to lose? You really don't have anything to lose at that point. But you can't go into it with anybody but Quinn just because of the fact that, you really want to go and start a freshman essentially in this game.
Yeah, you guys mentioned we got the news that Abdul Carter was going to play in that game, and that leads us into discussion of the draft. Carter considered a top 10 pick by a lot of people and could be the first defensive player off the board. It'll either be he or maybe Mason Graham, the D lineman out of Michigan. What's interesting to me is now with the NFL draft order set, and who knows how much it gets shaken up, how much teams are willing to move up. Hell, we don't even know who the GM is going to be of the team drafted number 1 overall if it remains the Tennessee Titans. Does it surprise either one of you guys that we're seeing more and more mock drafts? I'll start with you, John, going quarterback. Like, I can't in a million years foresee myself as an NFL GM spending the 2nd overall pick on Cam Ward. I'm trading back in that situation. You can have him.
Yeah, the issue just gets to be, the premiums, right, on quarterback. That's the problem. Is like if you don't have one, nothing else matters, So if you like the way a guy works out and you like what he brings to the table, there's no limit on quarterbacks you can draft in consecutive years. So if he sucks, just do it again the year after, right? You'll be in that position. So I'm a big believer in just kind of, skeet shooting when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Listen, if I had one of the first 2 picks, I'm taking either Shedeur or Cam Ward. And if I had the 3rd pick of who's the 3rd pick? Is that Cleveland?
No, it's Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants.
Giants. If I'm the Giants, I'll just take Milroe, or I'll take whoever's next on my board.
Oh,
if I don't have a quarterback,
not Milroe,
if you don't
not him, anybody
but him. Listen, Chris. I know you're a Pittsburgh fan. You don't really know about quarterback play.
I'm just numb to having bad quarterbacks around. I guess I don't know.
If you don't have a quarterback, your only job as a GM is to find one. Like, that's it. It's your only job. So yeah. I'll just throw me a dart. Any port in a storm, man. Just give me somebody.
I just can't believe we're gonna let a Dallas Cowboys guy talk down to us. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, the Cowboys guy is telling us about roster management. Seriously?
Hey, listen, I know about what mismanagement looks like. Yeah, so that's how you know, right? I don't want somebody to tell me to, I don't want my therapist who's never been through anything.
So let me ask you guys this then. Drew Allar has stated he's going back to Penn State for his final year. I think it makes a ton of sense, but I also think, and again, we're talking on Wednesday night. We have no idea how he played against Notre Dame on Thursday night. But if he has a big game Thursday night and they advance to the national championship, and then he has a quality game, win or lose, against Ohio State or Texas, he's going to have people knocking on his door saying, hey, Drew, you could be a first-round pick, especially when compared to the rest of this quarterback class.
Yeah, going back to school is almost never anything except a mistake. I think about one of the most famous cases was my guy at Ohio State, 12 gauge, Cardale Jones, right? Remember he came in for I don't remember who he subbed in for, but he was the hottest prospect in the world, and he came back to school and he absolutely sucked. Whereas, if he'd have just gone to the NFL draft, probably would have been a top 10 pick based on 4-game sample size. Jamarcus Russell went number 1 because of the Sugar Bowl. If Drew Allar has a great game and a great couple of games here, if they go to make a championship run, I don't care what the NIL is, he would be foolish to go back to Penn State, in my view.
Yep. This is the year to do it. It's not a great draft. You've got a ton. Look how many teams lost 10 games this year in the NFL that aren't. You have 2 teams that lost 10 games that aren't picking in the top 10. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this. So you've got to go. Who's the 3rd best quarterback in this class? Dylan Gabriel? Milrow,
Yeah.
Will Howard. You really want to draft Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers? I mean, like, you don't want to. You're going to have to. Somebody's going to have to take them. So if you're going to take a shot at a draft, it's this one.
Now's the time. Yeah, exactly. Which makes it all that more troublesome, much more troublesome for Penn State that Bo Pribula ended up transferring out because he had to, because the transfer window was open. And at that time, Drew Allar was going to be staying at Penn State and may still. Who knows? Again, we're in a time warp this week on BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We talk hoops. We pick our winners for each of the major conferences. And later, we review our football futures that we place at the beginning of the year and get you our best bets for this weekend as well. Right here on BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose
13.
outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker,
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
sports handicapper Rob Brown,
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
cycling all the top plays,
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
and one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3.
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, pick it in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose
13.
outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster. But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this. Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
And this week, like I mentioned, we're in a little bit of a time warp. So you heard us talking about the college football playoff semifinals a moment ago. For those of you that do the smart thing and download the podcast inside your Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast as soon as it's available, that's all well and good, and that's all applicable to whatever you may be betting on this weekend. To those of you getting us live on the network Friday night or Saturday morning, we get it. Those games are over. That's okay. We still got plenty more to talk about, including our best bets of the week. They may not even be college related. They may be NFL bets. We'll take a look back at our college football futures we placed at the beginning of the year. And, well, since we're at the start of conference play, it's really kicked off in a big way in the last week and a half. We thought we'd talk college hoops futures as well. And why not just roll through conference by conference and make some futures bets on who we expect to win each conference. Let's start in the ACC, and the heavy favorites are Duke, John, minus 375 at BetMGM. Clemson 550. Pitt, who just got utterly dominated by Duke the other night, 12-1. North Carolina 22-1. Louisville and SMU 50-1. I mean, I don't know if there's enough. Clemson at 550 is intriguing, but all these other numbers, like Pitt's not winning the conference. As much value as there is at 12-1, sorry, there's no value if the bet doesn't have a chance of winning. And Duke at minus 375, I'm just not paying the price.
Yeah, look, this league is embarrassing. There are probably going to be no ranked matchups in it all year long. I mean, it's basically the American. I mean, it's that bad. And I know the American, believe me.
You do.
I mean, there's no difference. There's one ranked team and the rest stinks. Now, obviously, the teams in the ACC are better, in the middle. But point remains the same. Duke is in a class of its own, and the rest of the league is a few steps behind. I wouldn't bet on anybody in this league besides Duke. I just don't think anybody's that live. I mean, Clemson has kind of fallen off since their hot start after they beat Kentucky at home. They've kind of come back down to earth. They lost to Memphis, lost to South Carolina, lost to Louisville last night. North Carolina, way too young, not talented enough on the interior. Like, there's just nobody in this league that I think is very live to challenge Duke. So Duke's minus 375, and they should probably be, as far as I'm concerned, 1,000, 2,000. I don't think anybody's challenging them in this league.
I agree. I think it's Duke, man. I don't know what happened. What happened to that conference? I mean, seriously, it was so good. It was so fun. We grew up on it. We grew up on that conference, and then it lost its way somewhere along the line. It lost its way, and now it is. I mean, that's a one. It's not a one bid league, but it can see a one bid league from where it's at right now.
It's a one good team league,
Yeah, and it used to be, when you think about the heyday of the ACC, maybe not all the way back in like the 8-team version of the ACC, but you can go back a few years, not that long, not too far into the distant past, and it was at least a 6 or 7 bid league, right? There were years where they were packing ACC teams into the tournament, and now it's what, 3 this year? 3? I mean, does that sound realistic? 3, if things break the right way. I mean, that's wild.
I mean,
if you would have told me, John, like 5 years ago, the ACC is going to be a 3-bid league in a good year for the ACC, I'd be like, what?
Yeah, I mean, so you've got Duke, you've got Pitt, you've got Louisville, you've got Clemson, North Carolina. I mean, I think at most it's 5, probably 4. I'd split the middle and tell you 4. So, but still, even 4 for the ACC is quite bad.
Let's talk Big East. Marquette, the favorites at -125. UConn's 2-1 at BetMGM to win the conference. Creighton 9-1. Nova out there at 30-1. I still believe in Danny Hurley. I still believe in the Huskies. I still got that UConn championship future that I placed the day after last year's tournament for the three-peat. Give it to me, baby. So I'll say UConn at 2-1 to win the Big East, Choppy.
I mean, you're gonna give me a little bit of money with UConn. I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it all day. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if old Danny didn't like purposely try to lose the Big East just to motivate his team. Just he's psychotic enough to do that. So I can see that happening. But I mean, they're a good team. They had a blip. I think they'll be fine. I think I would put money on them to win the Big East.
John,
I mean, Villanova at 30-1 is like, I don't know. I don't know how you don't bet on them because they're leading UConn at half. We're recording this on Wednesday. They were up 7 on UConn at half. That's going to put UConn and Villanova both at 4-1. I mean, 30-1 is, I know this Villanova team is definitely limited, but I'm not. Marquette feels like to me the team that is the 2 seed and loses to the 15. Like they're undersized. They rely a lot on the skill and the finesse. Villanova has definitely got. I mean, they got the leading scorer in America in Eric Dixon, probably a first-team All-American. You're giving me 30-1. They're 4-1, and they're probably going to beat UConn. I mean, that's definitely not right.
Yeah, that does. You're right. There's some value on that number at the very least. Big Ten always ends up feeling like a slugfest, and it's not necessarily the prettiest slugfest all the time. Michigan State, the favorites at 3-1. Michigan right behind them at +350. John, Illinois 450. Purdue 6-1. UCLA 7-1. Oregon out at 16-1. You're gonna give me almost 5-1 on the Illini. I like that number a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways you go in the Big Ten. You could definitely go Illinois. I don't really think that one is as cut and dry as for example the ACC is. You could go Illinois. I think Oregon is an interesting one. They always with Dana Altman are going to be in the mix there. They just beat Maryland on their home floor. Obviously, they did lose to UCLA. They did lose to Illinois, so that's going to be priced in. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you could go in the Big Ten. And it'll be fun because I just think that's one of those leagues where there's going to be a lot of cannibalization, right? So I definitely like the parity, and you're going to get a better price as a result of that parity. So I could definitely see that league going a bunch of different ways. I kind of like the flyer on Oregon though. I mean, Illinois, yes, because of all the ability there. I mean, they're legit, no question about it. But I also like Oregon because they got a couple guys that can get hot there with Bamba and some of the guard play that, I think Dana could maybe pull it off.
Yeah, it could go a half dozen different ways. I do like Illinois. I'll take them. I mean, they can win any kind of game. They could win a slugfest game in the 60s. They could put up 109 against Oregon. They played, they've played a really, really tough schedule. I mean, they've played Alabama. They've played Oregon. They've played Tennessee. They played Arkansas. They've played a really good schedule so far. I like Illinois to win the conference.
Big 12 is Houston's at BetMGM to win, but Iowa State right behind them. Cougars are +120, Cyclones +160, and then it's out to Arizona at 8-1, Kansas at 10-1, before you find Texas Tech at 15, Baylor at 20, and then everybody else is way out there, John. This is look, it's plus money on Houston, and I feel good about them. It feels like they're getting on track. Like, this is not a Houston team that I feel like in the last couple of years, it felt like the Cougars and Kelvin felt like they had to win every single game in order to make some kind of statement. Now it feels like a team that just is probably going to bide its time, wait around for the tournament, and then hopefully step on the gas.
Yeah, I mean, it's priced the way it's priced because they're only playing Iowa State one time, and they're getting them at home. You know, that's huge. That's an absolutely massive development that you're only going to play Iowa State once, and it's at home, and you get two matchups with Kansas, right? I have Kelvin like pound for pound, like the best coach in America. Like the turnaround that he has pulled off there at Houston since he got the job has been dramatic and fast. And it's mostly I won't say it's mostly the same team because they lost Jamal Shed last year. That's, outside of Zach Edey, you're probably talking about the most important player to this team in America. But outside of that, they brought back basically everybody. They brought back the bigs, they brought back the wings. LJ Cryer's back. So yeah, I mean, they won it last year. I mean, why would they do it again? That's kind of where I'm at with it. Now, in the Big 12 tournament, I'm fading Houston. Kelvin Sampson is notorious for not giving a hot damn about the conference tournament. But in terms of the regular season, yeah, I don't think I've ever faded Houston unless they're playing Penny Hardaway, and I don't think I'm going to start now.
I like Iowa State. I know you're getting plus money with Houston. I still think Iowa State is the best team in the conference. And the fact that Houston's going to have to play Kansas twice, that does make it a little bit more difficult, because you are playing one of the better teams, and it's a rotation, so you are playing one of the better teams a couple times. I like Iowa State.
SEC will save the strongest conference maybe for last year. I mean, we talked about it last week, guys. They could have their own region of the NCAA tournament, the SEC, by the time it's all said and done. And I'm only slightly over-exaggerating. When you look at the numbers, it's Auburn at plus 150, still the favorite. Tennessee plus 250. Bama 450. Out to Kentucky at 10-1. Florida at 22-1. I'll be honest. There are things that I like that I've seen from each of those top 5 teams I mentioned in the SEC.
Right.
And there are things that I've seen from each of those 5 teams, John, that I really don't like. I don't know if
Yeah.
I mean, other than the number on Kentucky at 10-1, I don't know if there's anything on the board right now that I go, ooh, okay, that's why I'm betting that team to win the SEC.
Yeah, listen, there's good teams in this league. There's great teams in this league, but getting through Auburn, I just don't see it. Like what they did last night against Texas, and it got like stupid at the end of the game because college basketball games, that is the essence of college basketball, right?
Stupidity.
Stupid. I'll use a gentler word, wacky. It's wacky. But it was mostly business, like for the first 35 minutes of that game. And what did Zach Edey teach us last year? When you have a big that's shoulders above the rest, you have a matchup problem, and there's not a lot that teams can counter that with, and that's what they have in Janai Broome, who's obviously the leader for National Player of the Year. So I think Auburn is definitely the prohibitive favorite correctly. Tennessee could challenge, Florida could challenge, Kentucky maybe, but I think it's Auburn in a runaway most likely.
Yeah, I mean, look, I run away. I mean, all these teams are going to play about 11 games against top 15 opponents. It's crazy. Auburn gets Tennessee at home, and that's probably going to wind up being the difference. It'll probably be, they'll probably win the conference by a game, and it'll probably be because they're going to win that game at home because it's the game at home. All these teams are going to play a nightmare schedule. If you have to play, Alabama twice, or if you have to play Florida twice and you're Auburn or you're Tennessee, and whichever one has to play those two teams twice, you're already in behind the 8 ball. So it's just tough. But I think Auburn, they have the bigger mismatch, and that's Janai Broome, and he's just very, very tough to deal with. And you've got the favorable schedule, so give me Auburn.
All right, gents, we got about 2 minutes here. National championship. Based on the numbers that are out there right now, Auburn the favorites, plus 550. I know we got a long way to go. We're 2.5 months out here, but maybe there's value as we start to go down the board. Duke, plus 750. Houston, 12-1. Iowa State, 14-1. Also Tennessee at 14-1, as well as Florida at BetMGM. 16s on Bama and Gonzaga, who we haven't mentioned yet. And then 18s on UConn and Kansas. Maybe Kentucky at 20. I don't know about national championship for the Wildcats this year. Then you get out into the 30s for teams like Marquette, Michigan, and Illinois, John.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Florida when it was 20-1. I think it's still probably fine where it is now. They kind of have the things you need. They got shooting, they got scoring. What I like the most about Florida is not just that they beat Tennessee. That's easy. But it's that in the span of 4 days, they went from scoring 100 points, right, in a shootout in a track meet to coming back home and having to win a rock fight, right? I mean, they didn't play that well offensively. I mean, they kind of were in the mud a little bit, and they were extremely comfortable in both ways, right, in both a track meet and a rock fight. That's the NCAA tournament, boys. I mean, you're gonna play different styles, you're gonna play different matchups, and you're gonna do that in the span of 24 hours, 48 hours. You got to be ready to do that. And so I think, if you're looking for more of a flyer, I think Florida makes sense. I think, Michigan State makes sense. They're kind of better than the sum of their parts. And they too have shown that they can do it in different ways. They're top 10 in the country in defensive defensive efficiency. So I think those are the kinds of teams that I would probably target instead of just going with the favorites, even though, would it shock anybody if it was a Duke-Auburn final? I don't think so.
No,
it wouldn't shock you. There's no value there. Any of those teams at 14 to 18-1, that's your sweet spot. Your Florida's, Iowa State's, Tennessee's, UConn's. I mean, you want to give me UConn at 15 to 18-1. I mean, I'm going to take it all day. But you want those teams. Now, the UConn's got to get better defensively. Their defensive efficiency numbers are just atrocious, and that's going to change. It's going to change. I mean, Hurley's too good of a coach.
I'm going to come in a little bit closer than that range you just identified, Choppy, and I'm going to say Houston at 12-1. John brought up a lot of good points about that squad. The roster basically back intact other than Jamal Shed from last year. I think they can make a run, especially with the Big 12 not quite being the same meat grinder this year that it has been in years past. Sets them up, but still doesn't tear them down before the field of 64 gets tipped off. How did our college football futures go that we placed way back in August, plus our best bets for this weekend, all on the way next on BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3. Oh!
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this.
Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game. We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this.
Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
Live coast to coast on the BetQL network every Friday night and Saturday morning for you. It is BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm Chris Mack, alongside my guys RJ Choppy and John Martin. We've talked hoops. We've talked football. We have not yet, to this point, boys, gone back and looked at our football futures, our predictions from way back in August that we made. We picked a winner for each of the Power Four conferences, and we picked a group of 5 representative in the playoff, as well as the teams that we thought would win the national championship. And I'll just say this. We're all dead. We're all dead in the water. None of us have anything left. This is why. So I will say we each had playoff teams at the very least. I mean, give us that. We all had Liberty as the group of 5 representative in the playoff. Womp womp. We all missed on the Big 12 too. I was real high on Oklahoma State. That worked out well at the beginning of the year. Choppy was there with me. I probably dragged him into it. My powers of persuasion. John was on Utah. Thank you very much, Cam Rising. Choppy
right.
and I also had Miami in the ACC, which almost worked out until they pooped the bed at the end of the year. John, you had Clemson, so good job.
What a beast.
Big Ten. Choppy, you and John were both on Ohio State, which I guess, you get half credit for, right? They didn't win the conference, but here they are still alive for a shot at the national championship. I had Oregon. Okay, called that one. SEC, again, Choppy and John aligned on Georgia. Good work, both of you. I had Ole Miss. Whoops. National championship, both of you guys had Georgia winning. I had Oregon. So there we go. That's why they're futures. You place those bets. Bad. It's actually not. The Liberty thing at the top of the table there that we put was what had me seeing a whole lot of red early, and then the Oklahoma. The Big 12. Let's be honest. You know what? Rather than making this a negative, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spin this into a positive. And this is going to be the first meeting of the Kenny Dillingham Appreciation Society. I call it to order right now. And I even knocked over my camera. That's how hard I pounded the gavel, boys.
Thank God.
That's how
Oh, no.
Hey, thank God he didn't have a Kenny Dillingham down there,
Oh, man. Get a photo of this.
This is good. This is
yeah.
I don't know exactly where he went, but I think we can hear him. But here's the thing, though. We actually, I'm proud of our overall performance, RJ. It's very difficult. I mean, it's hard to know in the NIL era, where these things are going to go. And
look at it
I think overall, we did okay.
Yeah, it's look at it like this, right? We don't know year to year in any of the sports and college athletics who's going to be good anymore. We saw this with like Memphis and basketball last year. We thought they were going to be good. They were pretty bad. Yep. We see this all around. You have no way of knowing. The portal, the quarterbacks, everything changes year to year. You might think you're going to be good. Now, the only ones that are going to be good are the ones that have like a quarterback that's going to be good every year. Like Texas will be good next year. Arch is good, and they know it's going to happen, right? So that's those are the schools that they've got much less variance. There's a lot of variance in this sport, though, right now. There's more variance in this sport, or as much as there is in the NFL.
I'm sorry, guys. I got so excited about Kenny Dillingham. I knocked my whole computer setup off. I pounded the desk for Kenny Dillingham and absolutely broke everything.
Hey, I'm glad somebody's out there doing it, Somebody's pounding the table for Kenny, man. Hey, Arizona State, just an admirable performance, right? I mean, that's the thing. They deserve that kind of passion with what they did against Texas. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Speaking of Arizona State, though, and Boise and the rap they have gotten, I know we talked about this just a little bit last week, the rap they have gotten since the quarterfinals. I've heard this case made over the last couple of days by a few people, and I think I'm more on board with this idea of, look, I know it looked bad this year. The teams that got the byes, getting bounced in the quarterfinals, all four of them. But as we pointed out last week, one of them was on a backup quarterback, right? Another one was facing probably what is now the hottest team in the country. And the other two may not have deserved byes. But look, I think we wait another year before we start making major changes to this thing. Is it going to make sense every year for some of these teams to have byes? Maybe not, but like it's the same way in the NFL. Teams that win divisions get byes, and they're not always worthy, right? Like, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers one of the four best teams in the NFC? Probably not, but they won their division, so they get a bye.
That's right.
And, you're right. We don't want to see double-digit spreads. We don't want to see routes. But I think what Arizona State did against Texas does go to show you that we're just as likely sometimes to either get a great game or maybe even an upset as we are the blowout that we got. It didn't even end up being a blowout, but the big win that, for example, Penn State had against Boise, John.
Yeah, listen, it's such a like the issue with the whole entire conversation is that it's a sample size of what 8 games, 7-8 games. I mean, it's really hard to make a declarative proclamation about what this is and what it's going to be every single year. I mean, it's just not really even fair. I mean, what decision would any of us make if we only do something, 8 times or whatever the case may be? I mean, it's just, it's not a full sample size, but you don't get forever, right? You don't get forever. You got to make it an entertaining product. Now people will watch and it will really, this isn't life and death situation, but, I think you can improve and you can enhance. And I'm sure that's something that, with another year, it seems like of the format as the way it is, they will revisit it.
You obviously didn't go to an SEC school if you don't think this is a life or death situation. Yeah, look, of course, it's a small sample size. I mean, there's problems with it. There's some tweaks I'd like to see made. I have no problem with all 4 Power 4 conferences getting a bid and the top group of 5. But I don't think that there should be the bye. I mean, I think that I absolutely need to change things up. Honestly, what I think should change is that I think the teams that get the bye should get the home games and play your Cotton Bowls and Peach Bowls in the first round. Like that's what should happen. But yeah, I mean, look, you're gonna have problems with everything. Every good idea you have is going to come with some drawbacks. And the drawback in this case is going to be we might get a champ this year that doesn't stand the test of time the way other champs do. Because, I mean, Ohio State and Texas and Penn State and Notre Dame most likely would not – well, they wouldn't have been in the BCS. They would have been – 2 of them would have been in the 4-team playoff, but they wouldn't have been in the BCS. Like, it's not going to be as – we're not going to get a dominant champ every year.
And I think I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that being the price we pay in order to get a more wide open, larger playoff with more games. And the hope would just be fewer blowouts in the first round going forward, and then hopefully more close games in the quarterfinal round as well. And you're right, Choppy. I'm all for just limiting bowl games to the semifinals. Like, I don't, especially when you start adding up the travel costs that a lot of people are going to see, I'm going to fly out to the Rose Bowl, and then I'm going to go to the Cotton Bowl, and then, I might, it's too much. You end up getting to the point where you're not investing and jumping in on following your team to what may be one of the biggest games in program history because, I went to the quarterfinal game or whatever it may be. There's still some tweaks. Some patience, I think, before we get to those tweaks. All right. Best bets for the weekend. It could be hoops, future or game. It could be football. Again, we're in a time warp here. So, college football semifinals, if you're listening to this on Friday night or Saturday morning, have already been played. And we did the show beforehand. So, I don't know. What do you got? John, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I went Philly -4. Jalen Hurts is going to play. He's going to clear concussion protocol. Jordan Love can't feel his arm. Christian Watson is out for the year because they stupidly played him in the final game of the season that really didn't matter that much. I tend to think that in games like this against like inferior competition, which is what this is, Philly gets a lead and they just kind of sit on you with Saquon and that offense. So I think Philly wins this game with margin at home against a reeling Green Bay team.
Ooh, man. Okay, I was thinking Green Bay money line, but I'm gonna do a Ravens-Bills teaser.
Okay,
Ravens-Bills teaser. So you can get Baltimore down to about 3.5, and you get Buffalo to 2.5. So you do that one. That it's a little less than even money, but you're pretty close. And they're guarantees. They're book them. Book them.
So I will say this about the Baltimore leg of that teaser. Teasing it down is the right way to play Baltimore, I think, this weekend. I don't just say this as a Pittsburgh guy, as a Steelers homer. I really think that this game is going to be a lot more like the first meeting between these two teams at Heinz Field back in October than it is the second meeting at M&T Bank Stadium just a few weeks ago. The Steelers are getting a lot of pieces or have had a lot of pieces come back on defense since that game. where Derrick Henry steamrolled them. Plus, you got the possibility of weather being involved. Mike Tomlin's, dark arts at work here. I think it is close in this game. I'm not going to go so far as to take Steelers money line, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take the Steelers and your 9.5 or your 10. If you want to take under 43.5 as well on the total, I like that. I think it was 18-16 Steelers when they met back in October. I think it's going to be a lot more like that. If you wanted to get really crazy, get yourself an alt under with an alt spread, bring it down, get yourself some better numbers. You can same game parlay that stuff for better than 2-1 because I do think weather involved. They probably play even more conservatively on offense than they have this year. The Steelers, that is, to keep Russ from making mistakes. Maybe sprinkle in a little Justin Fields here and there in short yardage and goal line. And I think it's going to be a tight game that the Ravens end up winning, but that the Steelers keep uncomfortably close for Baltimore. So if you missed anything, don't worry. You can always get us in podcast form, and we will be back next week to break down the national championship game in its entirety, maybe some more hoops as well. For our producer, Zach Krull, for John Martin, for RJ Choppy, I'm Chris Mack, and you have been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most interactive sports gambling show? Introducing BetQL's Send It In with PJ Glasser. We want to hear from you. Send It In is about your picks, your trends, and your fades. Share your thoughts, predictions, and your best daily best bets with the Send It In community. Set your reminders, mark your calendars, and get ready to send it in on weekday afternoons at 1 Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. On your home for wagertainment, the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Go for the betting cycle on BetQL with Cody Decker.
Cody Decker, former professional baseball player, turned professional smartass on the radio.
Sports handicapper Rob Brown.
When Penix Jr. plays USC, he's getting 400 yards.
Cycling all the top plays.
And Cody Decker, I think Florida can cover today.
And one outrageous show parlay.
1, 2, 3. Oh!
Let the chaos begin. It's Bet for the Cycle on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM.
Some would say that maybe he'll be chasing Super Bowl MVP. Really makes me angry that, like, Knicks fans can't have anything. We've been bad for... I get it. Now it's, okay, 100% of attention on 9 million games tonight. It's a playoff game! We've seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. And it ends with absolute disaster.
But I'll tell you, that's fun. But the most fun thing about betting on sports for me is this.
Like, hey, there's no tomorrow. And now, come on, put Pickett in.
Are you ready, sir? Start your engines. Let's go.
Astros money line versus the Marlins. Johnny Cueto, no thank you. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How does this affect me personally?
Which is absolutely bonkers to me.
If you do the middle school math, is 117 yards per game that you gotta post each and every weekend.
I knew it.
Who has the upper hand? Do we think it's going to be the offenses, or do we think it's going to be the defenses?
How about Saturday's game? Let's just throw a random game out here.
Like, I don't want to put faith in NC State. There's a chance we'll lose outright. Who knows? Jinx is definitely not paying attention right now. He's just vibing to the music.
Are you ready for the most